Have you ever heard of a man who was poisoned, shot, beaten, and still refused to die? This isn't a character from a superhero movie. This is the real story of Grigori Rasputin, one of the most mysterious and controversial figures in Russian history. How did a simple peasant from Siberia become the trusted confidant of the Tsar and Tsarina, wielding immense power and surviving multiple assassination attempts? Let's unravel the myth and reality of the mad monk who seemed impossible to kill. Born in 1869 in a remote Siberian village, Rasputin was different from the very beginning. As a child, he was known for being quiet and thoughtful, yet he possessed an intense, magnetic charisma. He had these piercing eyes that people said could see right through you. As he grew up, stories started to spread throughout his village. People claimed he had spiritual gifts, even mystical powers. Some said he could heal the sick and predict the future. This reputation as a holy man, a starets, would define the rest of his extraordinary life. By the early 1900s, Rasputin's fame had spread far beyond his small village. He traveled to St. Petersburg, the glittering capital of the Russian Empire. It was a city of extreme contrasts, with opulent palaces and desperate poverty existing side by side. It was here that Rasputin, the rough, unkempt peasant, would find his way into the most exclusive circles of society. The aristocrats were fascinated by this strange, intense man from Siberia. They saw him as a spiritual curiosity, a direct link to the soul of the common Russian people. His big break came when he was introduced to the royal family, Tsar Nicholas II and Tsarina Alexandra. The royal couple was desperate. Their only son and heir to the throne, Alexei, suffered from hemophilia, a rare genetic disorder that prevented his blood from clotting. Even a small bump or bruise could lead to severe, life-threatening internal bleeding. The best doctors in the empire were powerless to help him. This is where Rasputin stepped in. During one of Alexei's bleeding episodes, when the doctors had given up hope, Rasputin was called to the palace. He didn't use medicine or modern treatments. Instead, he simply sat by the boy's bedside, prayed, and spoke in a calm, soothing voice. Incredibly, after Rasputin's visit, Alexei's bleeding stopped, and he started to recover. Whether it was a miracle, a hypnotic suggestion, or simply the calming effect of his presence, the Tsarina was convinced. She saw Rasputin as a holy man sent by God to save her son. From that moment on, he became her most trusted advisor. His influence over the royal family became almost absolute. But as Rasputin's power grew, so did the number of his enemies. The Russian nobility, the politicians, and even members of the clergy saw him as a dangerous and corrupting force. They whispered that he was a charlatan, a debauched manipulator who was using the Tsarina's faith to control the empire. Tabloids were filled with scandalous stories about his wild parties and his influence over political appointments. To his enemies, he wasn't a holy man. He was a demon who had the royal family under his spell, and he had to be stopped. This is where the story takes a truly unbelievable turn. The attempts on Rasputin's life became the stuff of legend. In one famous incident, a group of his enemies decided to poison him. They invited him to a late-night gathering and served him cakes and wine laced with a massive dose of cyanide, enough to kill several men instantly. Rasputin ate the cakes and drank the wine, but to everyone's horror, nothing happened. He just continued talking as if nothing was wrong. Frustrated and panicked, one of the conspirators pulled out a pistol and shot Rasputin in the back. He collapsed to the floor, and the men believed he was finally dead. But as they approached his body, Rasputin suddenly leaped up, his eyes blazing with fury, and lunged at his attackers. They shot him again and again. He was then beaten mercilessly with a club. Still, he clung to life. The legend of his invincibility grew with each failed attempt. How could any mortal man survive so much poison and so many bullets? Some whispered that he had supernatural powers, that he had made a pact with dark forces. Others tried to find rational explanations. Maybe the poison was old and ineffective. Maybe his heavy winter coat absorbed the impact of the bullets. Or maybe he was just incredibly tough and had an unmatched will to live. Whatever the reason, his seeming inability to die only added to the fear and fascination surrounding him. He wasn't just a man anymore. He was a myth. But even myths can be broken. The conspiracy against Rasputin became more determined than ever. His enemies in the nobility, led by Prince Felix Yusupov, knew that they couldn't afford to fail again. In the frigid cold of December 1916, they lured him to Yusupov's palace for one final, meticulously planned assassination. This time, they combined all their previous methods. They gave him the poisoned cakes and wine. When that failed, they shot him. After he fell, they shot him again to be absolutely sure. But to leave nothing to chance, they bound his body, wrapped him in a heavy curtain, and drove him to the icy Neva River. They broke a hole in the ice and pushed his body into the freezing water below. This time there would be no escape. When his body was recovered from the river days later, the autopsy revealed a shocking detail. Water was found in his lungs, meaning that even after being poisoned, shot multiple times, and beaten, Grigori Rasputin was likely still alive when he was thrown into the river. His final cause of death was drowning. The man who defied death had finally been killed, but only after an almost superhuman struggle. The death of Rasputin sent shockwaves through Russia, but it didn't save the monarchy as his killers had hoped. In fact, his assassination may have hastened its downfall. Just a few months later, the Russian Revolution erupted and the Romanov dynasty, which had ruled for over 300 years, was overthrown. The Tsar, Tsarina, and all their children, including the young Alexei whom Rasputin had tried to protect, were executed. Even in death, Rasputin's legend continued to grow. Stories of his power, his survival, and his mysterious influence have been told and retold for over a century. He remains one of history's most enigmatic figures. Was he a true mystic, a holy healer with a divine gift? Or was he a masterful con artist, a cunning manipulator who exploited a desperate family's faith? Perhaps he was something in between, a man of immense personal magnetism and an unbreakable will to live, whose life was so extraordinary that it blurred the lines between fact and fiction. The story of Grigori Rasputin teaches us about the power of belief, the dangers of influence, and how legends are born from events that defy easy explanation. The truth of who he really was may be lost to history, but the legend of the unkillable man from Siberia continues to fascinate and confound us to this day. What do you think? Was Rasputin a saint or a sinner? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into one of history's greatest mysteries, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories that make you question everything you thought you knew. See you next time.